Hey, Sean Chandler here from Real Creators. I'm joined by Griffin Schiller from Film Speak, and we're doing a 4-part interview series diving into his story and just talking about his tips and tactics when it comes to YouTube. Today specifically, we are diving into what kind of has changed with your channel over the last year and a half, where you've just kind of 6 times as many subscribers in a year and a half, something like that. Your average views per video, crazy good. And your average views compared to your subscriber count, insanely good.
Yeah.
And that's feeding so much of your growth. And that's what everyone watching right now wants to figure out what that is. And so as much as we can kind of dive into what's kind of working with your videos, why they're working, and what changed that you moved in this direction, and just talking through that. So if you haven't checked out the first video, at the end of it, we talked a good bit about his video essays that he's been doing the last year and a half. And in particular, you have to find a way to stand out, differentiate yourself. And the barrier to entry to just doing a random talking head movie review, it's nothing. Anyone can do that.
Yeah.
Doing a well-researched, well-written video essay takes time, effort. It's difficult to edit. It's all of those things. And suddenly when you do that, put the work into it, you see all these results. So what were you doing before, and what was that thing that caused you to change direction to the video essays?
Yeah, so I think when I first started, I was doing, like you said, just like normal talking head movie reviews, whether it was like Chris Stuckman style, Jeremy John style, whatever. You try a bunch of things and you mimic a lot of people who came beforehand. And then I was also doing like movie talk, like podcasts, because that's how myself and my friends would just like talk about these sort of things. And we're like, oh, well, we can kind of do what like, the movie talk crew, the AMC movie talk crew is doing, because it's just like a panel of people talking about movies, and we can do that. And I haven't gone back and watched any of those videos. I'm sure they're not very good, and I'm sure we were completely wrong about us thinking that we could do something akin to that, because personality is a big thing.
But everybody thinks, well, I can do that. I can sit around talking about movies, but it's tough to actually have a conversation with someone that adds value, good insight, and is entertaining. Like that's a skill, and then group rapport and chemistry.
Yeah. So, I mean, it helps if you have friends because you already have that rapport, but you put a camera on and things might change. Anyways, I was doing like content like that, and then I think when I moved out here, and then the channel stopped being Men versus Movies and became Film Speak and was more centered around me because I was the one who was most passionate about it, so I was doubled down on it while everyone else went off and did their own things, and that's totally fine. Usually the people who are most passionate about the YouTube channel are going to be the people who stick with it. So if you start doing this with friends, you'll shortly figure out who really is serious about it and who's just kind of like a hobbyist or whatever. So when I moved out here and I was like trying to grow the channel, and I was like, I don't really like the name Men versus Movies anymore, because one, it's plural, and also it just doesn't really speak to like how I am. And so I just, changed the name to Film Speak, thought it sounded cool, thought it was interesting. So I just kind of like rolled with that. And then from there, I went to doing, again, typical talking head movie reviews, but the difference this time was because I was going to early screenings, whether like it was me waiting in a line from a GoFobo thing since like, 5 p.m. for like an 8 o'clock movie or whatever, or it was me actually getting on a press list. I was like, oh, okay, the key to this was just seeing something early and then getting it up as quickly as possible, and that's going to help. And I mean,
it's everyone that's done the movie review game has been like, if I'm first out, if I can get on the press list, if I can get into the advanced screening, then I'll get it out early, and that'll be the thing. I mean, does it help?
No,
does it give you the freedom to post when you want? Like, there's an advantage, but it is much smaller than you want it to be. Right.
And I mean, like, it's one of those things where it's like when I was doing a lot of like my own a lot of my own video editing and stuff like that, I was like really like detail oriented about these videos, and I wasn't just willy-nilly throwing stuff out there. Like I took pride in like my editor's mentality when it came to like making videos, which I also thought was like, oh, well, yeah, people can go watch that stuff, but like my stuff looks good. So like they're going to want to watch my stuff. Fact of the matter is no one knows your stuff looks good because no one's clicking on your videos. Right. So it might look good.
Because it's lost in the sea.
Yeah, exactly. And or in the Great Wall over here. It's lost there too.
Lost by the Great
Wall. And so, yeah, I was doing that. And then like when live streams started becoming more of a thing, I started doing like random live streams with like friends who didn't necessarily live in the same area, whether that was like TV show recaps, started doing stuff like that, or just like, you know, Oscar talk or whatnot. I was trying to find a way to like find all of these different interests that I had and incorporate them into the channel. So I was like, okay, well, I kind of talk about films like a little bit more like a professional critic than just like you, for instance, who is like someone who just likes talking about movies, and it's like you put a lot of thought in your video, but you speak in a way that speaks to like a broader audience that isn't like
it's usually common man's language. It's intent
exactly, and I'm a pretentious fuck, so you know that's really like so yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, so it's like I have that, like maybe I should focus more on like awards caliber stuff, and like there was a little bit of success there, and I was like, oh, this is my thing, like this is it. But it was also just like the demographic of people who are looking for that is significantly, or I guess the number of people who are looking for that is significantly smaller, and a lot of them probably aren't looking for that stuff on YouTube. They're either looking for it like via podcast or like via you know, their favorite outlet or whatever, the written word or whatnot. So it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, I've seen some people have success on YouTube in that awards space, but that wasn't entirely what I wanted to dedicate my channel towards, because I mean, I like stuff like the Batman or whatever, and I enjoy talking about that. So I think what happened was like in 2018, because I just as a viewer, I consume a lot of video essays just because that's just I like that. I was like, oh, that's so like that's slick editing. It's like really cool how they're able to like package their personality and throw it into a video. So it's like that's the kind of stuff I watch. I don't really watch movie reviews. And so in 2018, I just had a...
And I'd say even in that, there's something to that. Of
oh,
like,
yeah.
I meet people all the time like, I don't really watch trailer reactions, but that's what people click on, so that's what my channel's dedicated to. And I do a little bit of that. Like, I don't watch trailer reactions, but like it gets traction, but I don't think that's make best content at all. It's just something that I want to talk about the trailer.
Yeah.
But like I've literally met people that don't watch any, but they say... That's what my channel's going to be dedicated to because that's what people click on. It's like, you don't understand the market then. You don't understand who consumes this.
Exactly.
You're not a fan of it yourself. So unless you're just a prodigy of understanding other people's tastes, don't do that.
Yeah,
what do you actually like? What's something that you're interested in? How could you do your own spin on it?
Yeah, exactly. And I just like... Again, for me, and I probably mentioned this in the last video, but it's like for me, I just I got more out of like watching people like analyze films in a way like they do in video essays and stuff like that. So I in 2018 I did my first like kind of hybrid review / video essay of Suspiria, and it was a film where it was just like I kind of came out of it and I was just like in this weird, like that movie like did something to me like afterwards where I was in this very like creative mindset. It was just like I went home, I wrote the entire script for that video like over the course of a night, and then like the next day like completely edited it in one day, and it was like a hybrid of like a movie review and a video essay kind of thing. So it was, and I also made a thumbnail that was unlike any of the other thumbnails that I made before, which was more centered around like bold statements and striking images from the movie. And so I published that, and that wound up being like my most successful video on the channel for a very long time until I started like actually doing the stuff more and more. And like I look back at that video and it's like I look back and I'm like, okay, I could have definitely expanded on a lot of stuff here, but I'm also like, for someone who's never done this before, who's like just trying to like plunge into that, but I guess I wasn't ready to commit, and I just understood how much time went into doing something like that. And on top of like covering X, Y, and Z, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing all of this stuff. How can I possibly do more videos like this? So it was like when that video was a success and people really gravitated towards it, I knew that that's probably what I should be doing, but in the back of my head, I'm like, but then how can I keep going to press screenings and covering all of these films and like doing movie reviews and whatnot. And so you have
these strange thoughts that stick in.
Yeah,
I have to do all this. It doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not getting traction, but I have to keep doing it, right?
Right.
No,
you don't.
And then likewise, you have that thing that really works, and it's like, oh, that really worked. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go back to that other stuff, and I've always had those same thoughts too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like, when that video was a success, I was like, okay, I will do one of these a year, and I'll make it as good as it can be. It's not going to be a mainstay of the channel, or it's not going to be like the main thing for my channel, but it's going to be the thing that I'll look forward to doing once a year. So that was like kind of like a turning point. But then I went back to like doing the, live streams, movie reviews. I think like during the pandemic window, I tried doing other editorial like content that was more just like based around an idea and less based around a film. And it didn't really work out. And I don't know if it was just because the topics weren't necessarily interesting or whatnot, but, I felt good about them, but I wasn't like, this is it, So when those didn't work and I got sick of doing the live streams because it was just empty calories, I think actually even before that I did another video essay on an A24 film called Waves, because that was another film that I came out of and I was like really profoundly moved by, and like it took me a month to write that script, but I was so happy with it, and then published that video, and that video did really well. So long story short, at the end of 2020, I was actually asked to take part in this sort of video essay YouTuber collab thing. I don't know why, because I was never really like a big video essayist, but I guess people saw my channel, liked my videos enough that they were wanted me to partake in it. And they were like, hey, we're gonna cover like directors every month, and you can like do a video on these directors every month. And I was like, oh, that kind of sounds cool. And they started with Spielberg, and like I had a really great idea for a video on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom that I wanted to turn into something, because I had always been like, oh, this movie's so underrated. It's my favorite Indiana Jones movie. I'd love to talk about it in some capacity. And this provided me with the opportunity to talk about it. So I did that video. I worked with an editor. That was the first time I started working with, or that wasn't the first. Yeah, that might've been the first time that I actually like worked with an editor, just because of like all the other stuff I kind of had going on in my own personal life. And I was like, okay, let's see how this kind of like collaboration starts working. And so did that video, super proud of it, because I just, the amount of like research and just like thought that went into that video, like I had a month to make it and I released it, and like it did all right. It wasn't like the biggest success, but it was definitely something where I was like, I actually enjoyed the process of making this video a lot more than I did some of the others. And like, I have more just like things like this that I want to say. So, then the next month came around, and it was a collaboration, or actually I might have had that reverse. I think it was, either way, the next month came around and it was like Halloween, it was October, and, I was asked to do another collaboration with my friend Matt Draper. He was like, oh, we're going to do this thing called One Horrifying Moment. We're going to talk about one horrifying thing in a horror film we love for October. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'd love to do that. And I think he had asked me once before, and I said I was going to do it, and then I just wound up not doing it because I was like, oh, I'm too busy or something like that. And I was making excuses because I didn't want to I was like, that's going to take a lot of time to do a video like this. I don't know if I can do a video like this. And so I wound up, for the longest, I was like going back and forth for the longest time, just like, what do I want to do a video on? What is that one horrifying moment? And I was just like, okay, just scratch that. What do I want to do a video on that is like horror centric? And I was like watching a bunch of movies. I was like gravitating towards Tim Burton, and I landed on Sleepy Hollow because I was like, oh, this is a movie that I actually think is like really great that no one talks about. No one really gives like Burton credit for this film. And so I did like another video that I'm like really proud of that people don't watch, that I wish would watch because it's a great video, on Sleepy Hollow. Honestly, like one of my better written videos, to be honest, or maybe not, but I don't know. It was just one that I really loved the way it turned out. And so I did a video on Sleepy Hollow, and that did all right. But it wasn't until November when Soul came out, and it was a combination of, I got to see this movie like at least a month in advance before it came out
on Disney Plus.
Yeah, the embargo lifted, but I was like, it's okay. Like there's like a month window. No one's seen this film, and I was like really moved by it, and I thought it was an incredible movie, and so I made a video that was called "Why Soul is like a masterpiece" or something like that, because I legitimately think it is, and so I was like, maybe I'll just do another one of these video essay things with Soul, since it's a movie that I'm really passionate about. And I did that, and that video was the one that really kind of took off and showed me that there is interest in people people are interested in hearing me talk about films in this way.
Having that central thesis, that big idea that you're exploring.
Yeah, exactly. And that was another video I was really proud of the way that it came out with. And I guess no one covered Soul in that capacity. It also helped that it was a video that was out before the movie came out, and it was this big giant analysis. And in hindsight, I'm you probably should have saved that until after the movie came out, because people would have probably resonated with it a little bit more because they would have seen the movie. But what happened was, because the video was already out and people were watching it, when the movie came out, there was just this giant leap in viewership because people were really responding to the film. And when you searched Soul, whatever, my video was the first thing that came up on it. And so, yeah, basically from there, it was just okay, I think we're going to shift gears into doing more videos like this. And so I kind of finished out the rest of the year with the other content I had, just other movie reviews and extraneous stuff like that. But then in 2021, my sole focus was on video essays. And I was okay, we're going to start working on these. And I wrote one of my friends into it who still works with me to produce these. The thing was and I think the reason why my output has been as consistent as it is because I discovered that I can do this for myself, and I can be more productive if I have a small group of people helping me bring these to life. Just because you delegate things that you're capable of doing, but would ultimately speed up the process because it's that one person's thing to do. So it's become a collaborative effort, and I'm able to produce these videos at a quicker rate than other people because of that trust I have in the friends that I've decided to collaborate with. So it's kind of funny how it's all kind of come full circle, where started working with people who weren't really interested in what I was doing. The thing tanked, and then it was just me for a while. And then once I figured it out, I was able to bring some other people on board who were actually invested in what we were doing here. And now it's oh, this is how it operates when you work with people who share the same kind of vision as you do. And the great thing about it is I'm able to bounce off ideas with them and ask them questions, and they can tell me, nah, dude, that sucks. That's a horrible idea. What are you thinking? Or no, I think you should, that's a great point, but you should expand on it more here and X, Y, and Z. And so it's that creative kind of back and forth that you get in a filmmaking setting when people are making a television show or a movie or whatnot. I kind of have my own little mini version of that. And I think that's why the videos keep getting better and better with each upload. So yeah, when I made that shift into straight up video essays, I think that was the best thing that could have happened. And then when I started doing that more, I had a couple of videos that took off. I had a video bashing F9 because I thought it sucked, and I guess no one really attacked the Fast and Furious franchise like that before, so it actually worked.
How dare you?
I know. And so that was just a bizarre thing where it was that video took off. And so when I started doubling down on this content and figuring out title thumbnail combinations, which I know we'll get into a little bit later.
Just a second,
yeah. But when I started figuring out that stuff and how I can use that in tandem with the thesis and just these editorial style videos that are movie reviews, but not movie reviews in name or whatnot. When I figured that out, I think that was just the thing that kind of worked out. And the good thing about the kind of content I make is that it is so personalized to the creatives behind it that anyone can do them. It's sort of you're not going to get the same opinion. I mean, you might, but like generally if they're like good at what they're doing, you're not going to get like the same opinions watching like this channel versus watching this channel. Like it is so distinctly tied to the person speaking to you or the people speaking to you because of that thought and that analysis that like really only comes from that person's mind. And then the reason that these work is because it is so integral to the process to infuse your personality in there. Because if it just feels like random guy like reading a movie review, like people are going to click off and the videos won't succeed. The best video essay channels are the ones where it's like the person is actually engaging to listen to and entertaining. And so there's like that personality side of things that I think makes that like bolsters the writing and the analysis. Yeah.
So driving to the specific thoughts on things.
Yeah.
Some takeaways from what you just said. Kind of the idea of if you do the same thing as everyone else, you get the same results as everyone else. So you're competing against everyone else. So if you do more work, if you do something more extreme, if you research it better, you stand out.
Yeah.
And then if you're researching it more, if it's a 37-minute discussion of Dark Knight Rises, I mean, you just have to have your own thoughts in there. You can't.
Yeah.
When you're just saying it is good, the acting is good, the action is great. You're not saying anything. You sound like everyone else. When you do that, you have to infuse your own ideas and specificity.
Yeah, and to your point, like I'm at a point now where it's like I'm often writing too much. Yeah. Like I had videos that like I have a Casino Royale video because it's one of my favorite movies of all time that is over an hour long, and like I don't recommend ever posting a video like that is over an hour long unless you are like super passionate about it. So it's like I now have to start like consolidating my writing a little bit and being a bit more concise with what I'm saying. So it's like I'm almost going like too far into the analysis a bit. So it's like, but that's like a good problem to have. You know, you want to be in a position where it's like you have to kind of like reel yourself in a little bit.
You actually have thoughts.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You actually have something there that has depth.
Yeah.
Understanding of film, and thus you can offer something to the audience that's useful than just stating your opinion superficially. Yeah. So let's start kind of diving into more specifics, because you talked about your whole thought process, like have a big idea that you're exploring.
Yeah.
But so much why these work is your title strategy combined with your thumbnail strategy. And that's it. You think, how do you get someone to click? That's just right out of the gate. How do you get them to click? You have to catch their attention with the thumbnail. And then have a title that's enticing. That combination of the two of them, they should work together to do something. And the thing that you figured out was kind of these a lot of times these 1-word, 2-word things that catch the attention. It tickles the brain a little bit, and it creates a tension that can't be like that. What does he mean by that? I have to click on the video to unpack that. You want to go dive in a little bit, just kind of talk about that process of coming up with titles, thumbnails. Yeah. What is that for you, and advice you have in regards to titles and thumbnails?
Yeah. So going back to the fact that like I got my degree in college in computer graphics, I probably have an unfair advantage when it comes to this. Like I understand how to use Photoshop. I understand like image composition, color theory, a bunch of stuff that like, Joe Schmo, who has his own YouTube channel, might not understand. So like if you want to like really focus on the arts of thumbnail making, it is important to like seek out tutorials on like design or Photoshop and stuff. And that's just if you want to do it yourself. If you don't want to do it yourself, and there is nothing wrong with that, like it is not robbing you of your like creative input in this process. It's just literally delegating a thing to someone who can physically do that. If you don't want to make your own thumbnails, go to Fiverr and like find a designer on Fiverr who is capable of doing stuff like that. And then you kind of like negotiate a rate with them or something like that. Or even better, find a friend or someone that who is like good at designing like captivating images, and then kind of like work with them to figure out thumbnails. I think when it comes,
even the idea of knowing how to use Photoshop is not even the same skill set as knowing what's a striking image.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Even understanding, like knowing how to cut out the background, knowing how to switch colors, and the tactics of Photoshop. It's a totally different skill set from understanding composition, contrast, all these things that just make something pop. And when you look at things and you go, that's gorgeous. That's not something that happens by accident for most people. And knowing your own limitations.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the process for my thumbnails, like, has kind of obviously, like, changed a lot. Like, I used to have this sort of, like, red thing with, like, black and white characters in the front and stuff like that. And, you know, I used to think, like, oh, that's kind of cool. And it was
contrast.
different.
Yeah. Like, you can see things pretty easily.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of, like, and maybe this is getting a little too, like, into the weeds here, but that's, like, something that I changed was, like, I started focusing less on, like, same color contrast, and I think the only reason I did that was because I had a couple of videos that really took off with that color or with that like, you know, thing going for those thumbnails. So I was like, oh, okay, this kind of works. I can kind of do my own thing there. But then, you know, I just surround myself with people who understand YouTube really well. One of my good friends, Jimmy Champagne, who like has his own channel. We work for the same company, and we have like a bunch of, you know, YouTube. We go to, anyways.
And I met him for the first time yesterday.
You did meet Jimmy for the first time. Yeah, like I was talking. I like remember having a conversation with him, going like, you know, I think the channel's doing like all right, but like I know that like I can still improve in certain areas, and like I know the thumbnail process is like really important. Like, what do you think of like my current, like, I don't want, like, I guess I'll say like template for lack of a better word, for my thumbnails? And he's like, yeah, it's good, but like I think maybe you could do these things, or you could maybe change the font a little bit, or whatnot. And then he started showing me examples of like, you know, older channels that got a lot of success through like the use of color and whatnot. It's stuff that was just like really, you know, not hard to wrap your head around, but it was just like, oh, why didn't I think about that? So like, to your point, I went from focusing on like contrast in the thumbnails to like color theory stuff, where it's like I want all of my colors to be centered around one color or two colors or something like that. And then like I'll have an image in the front of that, which is like basically centered around two characters or whatever. And like that paired with like the sole color of the background, and it's a different color for each one, is going to allow it to pop a little bit more. So you're just using these big, vibrant things that are going to capture people's attentions, paired with, you know, bold, declarative statements about popular films that people are already searching for. And it's like,
and already have an opinion on.
Exactly. And when it comes to your title, when you're typing in something that either challenges that general consensus or is like, you know, phrased in an interesting way, maybe you share the same opinion as the general consensus, but you phrase it in an interesting way, that immediately makes something more interesting. And I mean, I don't even put like movie review in my titles anymore, and maybe that's because I don't really consider them movie reviews. But I mean, I put video essay in my titles, but like I feel like I don't even need to do that. It's just, that's kind of just like a safety net.
People understand what it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's more of a thing where it's like when people in the comments saying like, "Oh, you're being like objective about this. It's like you think your opinion is right." And I'm like, dude, it's a video essay. I can go point to my title and be like, it's a video essay, subjective opinion. Go fuck yourself. So anyways, the point is like finding a combination where it's like your thumbnail is in conversation with your title, figuring out a way to make that work and make it pop is,
one of the things, like, so you'll email me a list of titles. I assume you send them to other people too, and you'll write 5, and I'll be like, I really like the first half of this one, but I like the enticing word in this one, and then the third one, that word right there is really good. And sometimes what you'll do is you'll combine number 1 and 5, and then you take the word out of 3. Yeah. The word 3 appears in the thumbnail, and you're trying to make that combination of a thumbnail and a title that between the two of them makes people go, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so the one that I do these Comic-Con panels, and I use these all the time as one of the examples is just someone, you crack the code of enticing thumbnails and titles. Yeah. And so, you know, your favorite Spider-Man movie is Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
That's a hot take.
Yeah.
That's what makes it interesting. Like
Well,
everyone
and let
says
me
Spider.
and I just want to be clear. Like I have a lot of people who are just like, oh, you're just contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. It's like, no, man. Like I honestly, that would be a lot simpler of an answer. I just like have like. There are a lot of films where it's like I'm in the majority on and like I don't really have anything interesting to say about that. But it's like there are films that like have hit me in certain ways that I am just on the complete opposite side of where people are at. And like whether you like it or not, that's just kind of the way it is. And so like you said, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, no one else loves that movie as much as I do. But so I was just like, well, okay, that's just inherently an interesting topic.
Exactly.
I can put a video out about that. Leading up to the new Spider-Man movie, which is also going to feature that Spider-Man that is in the movie that I'm talking about. So it's like, why wouldn't I do that? You know, like
that's kind of the advantages of not reviewing every movie.
Yeah,
not being about I got to rush out and everything. No, you pick the topics that you have a compelling idea in regards to, and so the whole point is that I loved this movie. I did not like this movie.
Yeah.
And we all have these extreme takes that we have.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that make for interesting opinions. Like, I thought that movie was good. It was well done, a little bit familiar. That's not an interesting video essay.
But like to be fair, I've done those videos before, and you can make them interesting. You just have to figure out the right way.
The angle,
Yeah, right. Like I really liked the Hawkeye show. I didn't go bananas over it, but I thought it was good. I thought it was great. That thumbnail says great. I was like, it's a great show. I love it for what it is. And I guess because so many people were just hated that show, like there wasn't even like a middle ground, and I was like kind of in the middle upper ground, and everyone was just like, they despised it because they thought it was bad, and I was just like, I don't know. It's like kind of cool. Like I like what they talk about here and here.
Right. Like,
so, you know.
Yeah. I could talk about that from people on the internet. But that's exactly the idea of like, how do you find something that entices people?
Yeah.
Tickles their brain. But as you said all throughout this, you have a process, a team of people helping you with the writing process. You have people helping you with the thumbnail process. Yeah. And it's like actually trying to find something really good that's worth sharing. And even on my end, like I too often like, I'll just throw another thumbnail on there.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like really easy to do that. To be fair, it's like I did that for the longest time, and I got to a point where I just started reusing similar pictures,
images,
because I got sick of right.
For me, it's like the hat on or off. Well, in the video, I'm not wearing a hat, so I'll use this one.
Exactly, and like. I mean, that's like, if it works, it works. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But it just like, I think for me, I started getting too comfortable. I started falling into a groove, and I was just like, all right, this week I'm going to review this movie and whatever. I'm going to put up a video, and that'll be the end of it. And like, I'll obviously still obsess over the analytics, but like,
let's talk about that for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
The final kind of we're going a little bit long, but what are some of those things that when you're trying to figure out a video works? You've told me you've like changed a thumbnail. Early on. And most people are like, I slapped a thumbnail on there. This one just didn't work.
No, like I think, and this is stuff that I've learned just because I work for a YouTuber. For those of you who don't know, I am like an assistant editor for Austin Evans and his like YouTube channel and stuff like that. So if you know him, he's like one of the bigger tech YouTubers out there, and you know we're fortunate. I'm fortunate enough to like see how this thing operates at a massive scale, so I can like absorb that information and like apply what is, you know, appropriate to my own stuff. So that is like also just kind of like a big advantage that I've been very fortunate to have happen. But one of the things is like they will make 3 iterations of a thumbnail or sometimes even more than that. And they'll start it with one thumbnail. And if it's not getting the traction that it should be within like a first hour or first couple of hours or whatever, they'll switch to the next one. And if that doesn't work, they'll switch to the next one. So they're very, very, very aggressive about their thumbnail changes. And I think a lot of people have this idea of like, if I change the thumbnail, it's going to fuck with the performance of the algorithm. And it's like, Not necessarily. It might actually improve your video's chances, because when you change the thumbnail, YouTube has to take that into account, and then it'll start feeding that out to people. And it's like, are people clicking on that thumbnail and title combination more than, say, the last one? They'll also have like, a couple of like title iterations that they'll kind of like swap back and forth and find that perfect pairing, or at least the pairing that works the best for that specific video. And so that's just stuff that I learned and was like, okay, it's okay to be a bit more aggressive. Like, that is a valid strategy.
Yeah.
And will ultimately pay off in getting you a lot of views right out the gate. So like, do not be afraid to mess with your thumbnail and title combinations if you see like your CTR, your click-through rate, is really low at first. Granted, some topics are just going to naturally lend themselves to a lower click-through rate. And that's stuff to keep in mind. Like, I just posted a video about Rogue One. I know that because that's a movie that came out in 2016 that no one's really talking about right now, that like, it's probably not going to have the highest performance right out of the gates, or even the highest CTR right out the gate. But so take those things into account. But if it's something like, Moon Knight, for instance, or whatever,
I think ride that wave of momentum.
Right. And that show just ended, and I put up a video on it, and like, something wasn't really working. I made a quick change with the thumbnail. I think I kept the title, but I made like, instead of a black background, I used like a purple background or something like that on the thumbnail, and immediately whoop, it went up, and like people were more interested in that image. Yeah. So it's all about experimenting and just being like aggressive with those tactics right out the gate, so that more people can find your video.
And if something's not working.
Yeah.
It's not working. You can fix things.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people think when they publish a video, it's like, oh, it's done, that's it. But it's like, no, you got to monitor this stuff. And then also going back to your older videos, and like, if it's stuff that you want people to watch, for instance, because like a lot of, YouTube channels get views on those older videos after a while.
My channel works because of that evergreen content, because of the rankings. Those are evergreen. Movie review kind of comes and goes.
Exactly.
Trailer action comes and goes, but a franchise, I just discovered this new guy. What else has he covered?
Yeah.
And so those last forever.
Right. So changing your titles and thumbnails and like adjusting the description so that that video is now optimized more to perform. And especially since you changed something about it, YouTube will then like, the algorithm will kind of like pinpoint or like look at it and like decide whether it should start feeding it out again to people.
It's always trying to, YouTube wants to find hit videos.
Yeah.
So they're trying to find the perfect person to put in front of it.
Yeah.
And so when you update it to make it more modern for today, it helps it find the right audience. One thing I did a lot of last year, and I haven't done this year, but I need to start back up, is I use TubeBuddy to A/B test thumbnails.
Oh, yeah, that's a great tool. Yeah, I've used that before, too. I did that actually with my Scream video. I was A/B testing 2 different thumbnails, and like the one that I didn't initially start with was actually the one that wound up doing the best. And so I was like, oh, okay, I see the data there. Go with it.
If you don't know what we're referring to, there's a plugin called TubeBuddy that has a ton of like amazing tools, and there's different tiers. There's the free one, there's the one that costs money, and one of the ones that costs money is the one that has A/B testing. Basically, you upload 2 thumbnails, and it changes them out day to day, and all the YouTube analytics, it just processes them through their own little formula to let you know which one works better and why it recommends that. Like, here's the reasons why this one is better based off click-through rate, watch time. Like, it literally tells you this thumbnail gets more watch time than the other one.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating when there's actually like a 30-second difference in watch time between thumbnails. You realize the wrong image attracts the wrong people.
Yeah. So, I mean, to your point, you were talking about the 3 things that are most important: the thumbnail, the title, and the watch time. Like, how long is someone watching your video? Because if they're not watching for very long, then YouTube is less likely to feed that out to people. It's also a case where it's like, if people are watching your video longer, but the CTR is a little bit lower and your views aren't necessarily where you'd like it to be, that might cause YouTube to start feeding it out to more people, because the people who are watching it are watching that video longer. So like, watch time is incredibly important. And if you think that your videos are doing well, I promise you, like, especially when it comes to watch time, I promise you that they're not. You can always improve that retention graph. That retention graph is so important to study and figure out those little, take with a scalpel and just figure out like where are people dipping off? Why are they dipping off there? Like, that is so incredibly important when you're making these videos, really making any video, to understanding your audience and how to keep them watching for longer. It's why Mr. Beast videos do so well, because he has like a strategy when it comes to like the storytelling in the video and the editing that goes with it and stuff. You know?
And in the case of like, he's an extreme example of someone that just obsesses over his analytics. Yeah. And you just hear interviews with him where he talks about like, we just go through every single video and study our audience retention to optimize, to keep people on that video forever. We absolutely study which thumbnails work and why. Yeah. And then just... We have these brutal meetings where we just call everything that sucked, and and he just obsesses over it. And most people don't even put thought into it, because it's work, and it's not fun to put out a video you put a lot of time into and realize how little people actually watched it. It's a punch to the gut. But it's a punch to the gut that you learn from, and you can make the next one better if you do the work. All right, so we've been going a long time. Any final thoughts on growth strategy? I mean, there's a lot of gold in there about thumbnails, A/B testing, having them in the bag ready to go from the get-go. That's what I do with a lot of mine. Is I'll have like 3 different versions, and then I'll ask my wife which one she likes, and then I'll think which one do I like, and then look at it on your phone. Which one pops on your phone. Pinch it
also to see it like in a smaller version, which is how a lot of people are going to see it when they're on YouTube. I mean, exactly what you're saying right now is just bouncing the ideas off of people. That's like probably the best thing that you can do outside of studying tactics that make a thumbnail like compelling and good. And I mean, like, if you want to know what makes a good thumbnail good, look at the videos that are doing well. Don't copy them, because that doesn't work. That's a horrible, like, people are going to be able to go look and be like, oh, you're copying this person. This looks like their video. And they're going to be even less likely to watch your content.
And you're normally doing a bad version of it.
Exactly.
It's very obvious what you're doing, and you're doing a bad version. Like, I see people copy my finger points all the time. But like, whenever I do my finger points, like I want to have depth, so it looks like the words underneath you, so it has the third dimension tied into it. So I have to cut myself out. I cut my body in half to put my arms on top of the words. I do little things just because I think it just looks slicker when you have dimension, a little shadow dropping onto the words that just makes it feel like a real space.
You hear all this detail that goes into his thumbnail? This is stuff you probably don't even realize when you go to click on a Sean Chandler video, but it is making it is like subconsciously making you click on that video.
And it's the perceived professionalism. You look at one and it's just kind of a person standing right, there's words on top of them. The colors not quite there. It's like a little shade of red where you're like, that's fine, but there's certain shades that just look dull.
Right.
And then the words are on top, but it's a font that just it's not that interesting. Same layout, same structure. But as soon as you kind of have that depth to it, just that extra work, it takes time to actually decide to cut my arms out and put them on top. And sometimes, depending on, I might be holding something and I'll have to like cut out my hand to do this whole extra thing. So that there's all these little details, but you look at it and you couldn't identify why one of them looks better, but it does. And think through all that stuff.
And again, he just told you what he does for his thumbnails. Don't go copy that, because that's just what he does. Like, go find your own thing. Go experiment with like weird colors and interesting images, or just random arrows and stuff like that. Find some sort of like combination of text and like color and interesting image that works. And I think that's also the thing. Like, understand when an image isn't interesting, which I know is kind of like hard to figure out, but like things that focus on like faces, very expressive faces, not necessarily yours, but maybe it's a still from a movie. Like, how can you pair that with other things that make it like intriguing, that make someone want to click on it? You know, these are all just things that you should consider when you're like making a thumbnail. It's not as easy as like this, or just like this and then like image of the movie poster and movie review. That doesn't do anything. Like, I just see so many people doing that. I'm just like, this is not 2013 anymore. Like, this is 2022. your viewer is way more savvy, and also like your thumbnail of you doing this and this saying movie review is just gonna like blend in a sea of just everyone doing the exact same thing.
And you got to think.
Yeah.
That recommended page for YouTube, there's 12 videos there. And you want your click-through rate, that means those 12 videos, did they click on yours or one of the other ones? What percentage of time did they pick yours? 12 videos right there on the screen, or there's 8 on the sidebar.
Yeah.
How do you make sure you stand out? And if your strategy is, I'll copy that other person, you're choosing to not stand out. You're choosing to look exactly like that person, or you choose to like do the hard work to come up with your own formulas, your own templates to stand out, and then do the extra work to make everything just a little bit better, a little bit slicker, a little bit more professional. And I think that's at the core of everything we've been talking about here.
Well, exactly.
Doing that extra work that requires having a team of people, thinking about what words pop.
Yeah.
Spending time on a script. That takes not just hitting record and going for it, but writing a script.
Yeah.
Thinking about your analytics. Making 3 thumbnails.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to make 1.
Yeah.
Have 3. Changing it out. A/B testing. All of that takes time.
Yeah.
And it's the work.
And I will say, it's like the more you do it, the more you'll be able to kind of like figure out which thumbnails, which titles and stuff kind of like work for you. Like I don't always A/B test. I don't always swap out thumbnails, especially if I know like something will work. It's just like more people need to see it. But there are other times where it's like I wasn't really confident in the initial like concept of this thumbnail anyways, and it's not performing. So clearly my intuition was right. So maybe I need to go back and like tweak a few things. So yeah, I mean, like make a bunch of iterations of a thumbnail and then like try them all out and see what works. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
All righty. With new background behind us.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your kind of journey and full kind of discussion about how we got to these video essays and all the thought that goes into it. And I think that's what a lot of times we want the little nugget. Like, oh, just throw this keyword into your tags, throw this keyword into your description. It's not that. It's a whole process, a mindset around your titles, your thumbnail. And all that goes back to, you have a great idea to begin with. And you have a great idea. Now, how do I package that with a title that is enticing, a thumbnail that is captivating, that cuts through, that tickles the brain a little bit, creates a tension that can't be resolved until they click on that video and they want to know, why on earth do you have Amazing Spider-Man 2 as your number 1? Or whatever it is. Or like, I agree, that is a masterpiece. Why does he think so? Is he gonna, can he put my words out there better than me? That Fast and Furious movie was garbage. Let me hear this guy say it in an articulate, smart way. Like, about why that Car in Space Dumb movie is terrible. But it's all of that. It all kind of works together. You have to have a great idea, a title and thumbnail that just captures people. But that takes work to do it.
And the other thing I will say, and this is kind of a big step that we haven't necessarily gone over, but is probably worth going over in your own time, and that is understanding SEO strategies, like stuff that allows you to target specific
search engine optimization.
Yes, thank you. Search engine optimization, like these tactics that you learn where you're like, okay, with my audience, my channel, this size, and like the things that have traditionally worked for me, how will I rank for this specific search term? And like, using tools like Google Analytics, Google Trends to see which kind of like keywords are trending. Even something as simple as just typing a potential video title or a keyword that you want to search into the YouTube search engine.
It fills things out.
And filling it out. Or just like Googling, like I do this all the time. I have a title that I'm going back and forth with, and I just type the title into the search engine and I see like what videos are kind of coming up, and it's like, okay, can I compete with these? Is this the combination of keywords that I should be targeting? Stuff like that I do that like you wouldn't even think people do before publishing a video, but is arguably the most important thing you can do, because like you can have a great video, you can even have a great thumbnail, but if your title is not targeting the right keywords, it might not, you're kind of rolling the dice there. Like it might pick up, but like also why risk it not getting picked up? Like you can be more reassured if you do the research to see how you're sort of ranking for specific search terms.
And also just thinking, YouTube is the second largest search engine out there behind Google, and Google owns YouTube.
Exactly.
And so understanding that title, search engine optimization, and little tactics that people don't think about, that auto fill-in that YouTube does, that Google does, it's telling you what people are searching for. It's telling you, and you can use that. Does that video already exist? If it doesn't, you can be the one that makes it.
Or if it does exist, how long ago was that video made? If that video was made like 5 years ago, put out a video on it that gives your perspective on it. And like, because that first video probably did really well, if it's coming up in search and has like a lot of views, you could like kind of like capitalize on that, and people could just like go there. So
all right, thank you so much for doing a deep dive into just that journey of how this all comes about. This is only part 2 of a 3-part series, so we'll be back in the future diving into what would Griffin do if he was starting over today. And so be sure to come back for that, and thank you for watching.